Дамы и господа, добрый день. Тема нашего сегодняшней дискуссии, точнее моего выступления,
I'm about to speak about how
среднему бизнесу.
small and medium-sized enterprises could avoid cyber attacks if they have no money for the information security. The previous speakers have already touched upon that topic. You always run out of money. Raise your hands, those who are from SMEs or from customers or from the regulator.
Очень интересно, спасибо. Но это касается большого бизнеса. Итак,
I will speak about big business as well. Let me begin. To start with, let me introduce myself. My name is Kuznetsova Elizabeth. I'm head of the complex project from InnoStage company. Today we are going to speak about how we can avoid cyber attacks. Once you have no time to have necessary personnel, if the attacks every time, every month, every day become more obvious and more relevant.
В своем выступлении я хочу это сделать с точки зрения.
And in my presentation, I would like to speak through the prism of the information security concept. And as far as I was supposed to quote from some smart guy, to meet the expectations, I immediately decided to modernize the phrase by Winston Churchill.
За безопасность необходимо платить, а за ее отсутствие расплачиваться. Да, говорил он это с точки зрения уменьшения травматизации на производстве, но это как-никак актуально в наше время с точки зрения информационной безопасности. Итак, наш ближайший план на 50 минут примерно такой. Мы поговорим о том, что такое концепция уровня зрелости, почему она применима к малому и среднему бизнесу. Дальше мы по верхнеуровневой модели посмотрим и оценим себя здесь сейчас. Представители малого, среднего бизнеса вы или крупного также сможете оценить. И дальше поговорим о том, что можно сделать в самое ближайшее время, возможно, за небольшие деньги. Все зависит от размера вашей компании. В самое ближайшее время. Думаю, будет интересно. Итак, начнем. Что же такое концепция уровня зрелости, да?
So what the maturity level is about?
Это такой некий путь, некий шаблон, который может вам помочь. Если у вас еще не построен киберустойчивость, вы начали путь.
This is a template that can help you, and
проложен какой-то путь оценить.
Once you have made a journey, and you can assess your way from A to B,
оценить то, насколько быстро вы это делаете.
And you can assess whether you can do that quickly or efficiently.
Why?
I'm going to tell you that through the prism of SMEs, this concept is not so popular. Mainly, it's being used by big business, but I call on you to give it a try, because this is not so difficult, especially to make that not a detailed way, but it will help you to keep track of the result, and it will help the top management to assess the efficiency of integrating that into your business. The conventional, the textbook definition is that these are some requirements, standard requirements, for instance, ISO regarding the information security. These are some standards with requirements to the processes and how to manage those processes. But the problem is that every company is individual, is unique, and there is no one-size-fits-all concept of maturity. Still, you have to tailor that for your company.
Сейчас мы поговорим о том, что же нужно учесть.
So let me tell you what we have to consider. As the previous speaker has said, we have to consider the regulators' requirements. Every company, depending on the sphere of their activity, would have to meet certain regulators' requirements. There might be some standalone requirements, some specific requirements. And the most obvious, for instance, is about healthcare. If you have a little dentist's clinic, then other regulators would come afore than the sphere of activity. Something you have to consider, because there are some specific features, as I've said in the very beginning. So the format activity, online and offline enterprises, by their structure and by their needs, may have different processes, and therefore the requirement toward information security would be different. The level of digitalization and automation, that's an open secret that with the scale out of the company, the digitalization and automation level would go up. For instance, the florists, the flower shop, if you are selling the flowers in the street, that's one thing. But once you have a chain of flower shops and you have a database of clients, once you collect the private data, and for instance, once you notify your clients about certain birthdays, that's a good reason to think about that. Then the level of methodological processes, whether your company has incorporated some methodological processes. If you're a top manager or a director of an organization, and your accountant receives a bill on your behalf, will he pay, or would say, I apologize, it was not reconciled with 1C? Availability of stakeholders, it may change depending on the level of detailing, how precise the processes are, but who these stakeholders could be: a regulator, top management of the company, IT department, and sales department, as a rule, because they are mostly processing the data and they are the ones who are using the data. Number of personnel, the more personnel you have, the more expensive it is to provide for the cyber sustainability. Development roadmap, an interesting thing to say. Whether you plan to stay within your SME segment, or you have ambitious goals to conquer the whole world and to launch a global franchise. This is something that you have to bear in mind. This is where you can take a decision that you plan to grow within small and medium-sized enterprises. And that segment, and probably it would be easier and actually more efficient to outsource that. I'm not calling on you to do that, but this is just one of the options. Availability of confidential information. Confidential information somehow is pertinent to any company, something that any company may have. But if your business rests on some technological nuances, where once you have some technological formula that you have to protect, in terms of the format of the maturity model, it could be presented. It could be presented differently as a roadmap, as a descriptive thing, but I would advise to make two options. One should be visual, and the other one is a descriptive one. Let me explain why. There might be a gap in communication between top management and developers, and the visual representation will help IT specialists to ram it home to the top management that we have to invest more in information security, dependent on the risks, and then you will understand what we have introduced, what we have incorporated, and why we failed to do something. For the top management,
гораздо удобнее принимать решения на
It would be much easier to take decisions proceeding from the visuals. And
по описательным
the
документам,
hands-on experiment confirmed that.
те или иные моменты были оценены именно такими.
Why? Certain things were assessed this way. What the priorities were there?
Что от вас требовал регулятор?
What was required by the regulator? What happened in the market this or that time?
Это позволит, когда вы будете ее пересматривать,
When you are revisiting that model, when you're upgrading that model,
помнить, почему те или иные
you will remember why certain decisions were taken, or probably you have committed any mistakes. We're all people, and
изменить вектор.
errare humanum est, and therefore you can change the vector.
Ее нужно обновлять, она должна жить.
So that model has to be renewed, and every 6 to 12 months we have to revisit it. Why?
Компания может расти.
The company may grow, and therefore the level of digitalization would grow.
Также появляются новые угрозы,
New threats emerge every year.
те или иные тенденции на рынке.
New tendencies in the market proliferate,
Хакеров в том числе.
and hackers are no exception.
Фиксируем изменения, которые были проделаны.
And we note the changes that were done in order to improve your cyber sustainability.
Дальше я составила на примере модели 7MI
Then I used the
концепцию
7.0 model in order to make the maturity model, which has to be tailored and fine-tuned for your company, but at least it would help us to
компания ваша.
assess roughly where your company is on that picture.
И так, выглядит это примерно.
It looks like that.
Давайте поговорим по уровням.
Let's speak about different levels, different tiers. So the level 1,
Хаос, надежда на то, что
chaos reigns there, and we hope that no one would hack us,
здесь, как правило,
and usually no measures of protection are implied.
управляемый. Тут
Second level,
базовые меры,
the managed one, so some basic measures are introduced. The company realizes that information security tools have to be used, but still perceives that as a technical problem.
у нас работают не ИБ,
And we do not have
закрыть ИБ-тему.
information security departments, but rather IT department tries to address that problem. So then determined, this is where we see the systemic approach being used when the company tries to
Включить информационную безопасность
include the information security
да, то есть чуть-чуть
into the investment plans. So they are thinking ahead.
количественно управляемый.
Then
Уже проект,
quantitatively
аналитика.
managed. So we have efficiency of the management with the information security tools. The company acts proactively.
Концентрируется больше на будущем.
The company looks into the future and invests more into the future. And the fifth level is about optimized level. Here you find automation and integration of business processes.
Иначе компания внедряет
Somehow the company introduces its code and its culture
как неотъемлемый
of information security as an integral part of its business strategy. But bounty, cyber tests, and other things are also an integral part of that level.
концепции малого и среднего бизнеса.
But in the concept of small and medium-sized enterprises, and probably you would agree with me, according to my observations and according to the statistics, SMEs
Обычно
usually
первым, дай бог,
find themselves on the first or
прям хорошо
on the
должно
second level. You have to be lucky enough.
Что с этим делать?
What can we do with that? Getting back to the statistics,
81%
81% of
атак на малый
attacks
и средний
are
бизнес.
made against small and medium-sized enterprises.
Что хакеры злые,
Not because the hackers are evil
у нас
and they want to
стало,
destroy all the
малый и средний
SMEs, but this is just because SMEs
То есть либо когда
would take
регулятор
sporadic actions to protect themselves against hacks.
они пытаются
Other
пожары.
fearing the penalties from the regulator, or once the incident has already occurred and they are acting reactively. I will not speak about the skyrocketing in the number of cyber attacks. This is the third day of the festival, and probably you are familiar with the scary figures in terms of the rise in the number of cyber crimes and how much losses it incurred to the business, etc. What we can do to make sure that even being on level 1 and level 2, to at least somehow improve our cyber sustainability without investing into that billions of rubles. We'll try to answer that using the most popular attacks, and we'll see what can be done with that. So, fact number one, 90% of cyber attacks are done thanks to the human factor. And that's about the phishing, messengers, social media, and fake bosses, etc.
Человек — это слабое звено. Хакерам иногда
Human is a weak link.
пройти через человека и надеяться на человеческий фактор, чем искать уязвимости в ПО, в оборудовании, подбирать пароли.
So this is much easier than just sniffing the passwords. And the use of artificial intelligence in our reality, it makes it even more vulnerable, and it looks like real letters. What can be done about that?
Обучение сотрудников, базовая информация.
We can train our personnel. We can provide some basic information, raise awareness of the social engineering methods when we assist ourselves. It would manifest itself on level 3, but in essence, it would close a lot of questions. And yesterday, my colleague, Dmitry Kokorin, spoke on May 22, and you can find very interesting statistics regarding our SOC as to what the global statistics is. Well, actually, 30% of people are being caught by the phishing letters. And the people are going to use those links, etc. So training is mandatory. Some organized courses are required, and if not, then at least you can improve some literacy, telling the accountants that they do not push all the keys and avoid weak passwords. For instance, if the criminals through messengers get access to the account, and at least the basic password should not be stored in PCs and should be more sophisticated one than 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Fact number 2, there are no information security experts. That's a problem for SMEs. We all know that SMEs are not prepared to pay to the information security specialists. They have no money for that department. So the reason is that it costs too much. And people from the countryside said that they are ready to pay some money, but usually such specialists reside in big cities and they're not prepared to move to the cities with a population of 200,000. I talked to my colleagues to decide what should be done. I know examples, no cases when, well, actually, every year the company would hire a graduate. He works for 6 months. He would get some experience, get some line in his CV, and that would move to another company. So this is a kind of a way out. And once we have your own IT specialist or administrator, it doesn't work very well, but I know that some system administrators would be promoted to information security guys, but you have to motivate them to do that. And we have to agree in advance about his future carrier within your company. That topic is not easy, and I do think that this is the most difficult question, what to do with the information security specialists, because SMEs usually try to find a universal person who would change the cartridge within the printer, who would upgrade the antiviral program, and would provide an access. But usually it works until the very first serious incident. Fact number 3.
Возможность мести бывшими сотрудниками.
Revenge taken by former employees. Well, the churn is quite normal, but it may entail some reputational risks for the company. I read a story when in the United States, in one project development bureau, assistant director saw a job opportunity and the phone number of the director, and she erased the 7-year archive, which was estimated at $7 million. And it happened so that actually the director was not about replacing his assistant, but was looking for an assistant to his wife. So the feel of revenge once certain conflicts emerge may trigger that, where this is about blackmailing. No one is secured against that. What can be done? That's a register of user rights in the IT media. Many forget about that, and they do not block the accounts of the dismissed staff, and they provide general access and not to provide individual access, but it ends up with very dire consequences, just like in a case above. Usually, and probably we're not anymore speaking about SMEs, but mid-sized business would register corporate resources using their personal mailboxes of employees or directors. Don't do that.
Любой там даже Google или иные
Google or other cloud providers or mail providers will never be able to restore the access to that. Do not discuss dismissing personnel in generally accessible places, and try to maintain friendly atmosphere, and try to treat your personnel with a grain of human touch. Fact number 4.
Ненадлежащее хранение паролей.
Improper storage of passwords. This is very painful, this is very expensive and unpleasant, and the ramifications would be quite dire. Once you store the passwords on the generally accessible resources, the same password for the whole company, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, now control over VPN connection. This is easier and cheaper. When everyone has an access, when everyone can check, and no one is going to call you in the middle of the night. But as a rule, it results in very dire consequences. There was a case. One company that I know, and by the way, it was the information security provider, and they were hacked. They didn't have antiviral software. And the criminals found an Excel file with the passwords for everyone. So that was not so funny either for the provider or for all the companies who they rendered their information security service. And what could be done about that? First of all, you can use the password generators and managers that may help to keep your password
уберечь вашу инфраструктуру.
or at least to
Регулярная смена паролей. Тут
secure your infrastructure. You have to change the passwords regularly. At least once in 3 months you have to do that. At least I know some people who are changing the passwords every month and then
начинают воспринимать это очень сильно негативно. И двухфакторный
they are reluctant to do that any longer. And two-factor identification. There are some nuances.
она к каким-то ресурсам позволит решить серьезную проблему.
But it may help you to address a very serious problem anyway.
Мы много сегодня и в целом уже третий день говорим,
This is for the third day that we're speaking about cyber sustainability,
как ее повысить,
how we can improve that and what could be done about that. And
кто-то про конкретный инструмент рассказывал, но
you heard about different tools and instruments, but hence is a question, why the business needs that? What is the ultimate goal of cyber sustainability?
юридическая сторона,
From the legal side, yes, a regulator may penalize you.
репутация,
Reputation.
да, неприятно.
That won't be pleasant.
Мы с вами прекрасно знаем большие
But we all know
компании,
some big companies
где утекали данные у кого-то.
that would leak the data or that would be hacked, but nevertheless they are still in the market.
Единственная причина
The
бизнеса
only reason why
маленькому, что среднему,
business, SME or big business, why they need cyber sustainability, that's about money.
крутится около денег. Зачем
Money
внедрять?
matters. Why you introduce that? In order to improve the cyber sustainability. Because
DDoS-атака простого
if
сайта,
this is a DDoS attack, it means that your
потерянный час, это деньги.
site is blocked and you lose money. Every hour you lose
Или информацию,
money. Once the information was erased or deleted,
многие
that's about losing money.
занимаются большим объемом информации.
People who are dealing with the big data or big scope of data, for instance, once you are designing something.
Знакомая компания,
I have
которые они простой у них был,
a company that I know.
пока не восстанавливали инфраструктуру.
It took them 10 months in order to restore the infrastructure, and they tried to collect piece by piece what was encrypted.
Это всегда деньги. И
This is all about money.
IT и B-специалистам
IT and information security specialists always have to
на то,
draw the attention of the top management to the fact that
защита — это не расходы, это инвестиции.
protection, this is not cost, this is investments into the continuity of business, the continuity that
Внедрение СЗИ и каких-то
would be
организационных
ensured by the information security tools and some organizational measures that may help us
И именно
in addressing those problems.
я предлагаю принять во внимание
I suggest that we
и
consider that and try to find necessary
немножко стратегию
information security specialists who would be business-minded.
вот такую плюс-минус, да,
I suggest that they bear in mind the
где-то до 250.
deployment cost, how much money they may lose.
Когда бизнес видит деньги,
Once the business sees the money,
уже корреляция рисков
then
достаточно срабатывает.
they would be mindful of those risks.
Я призываю скачать презентацию,
I call on you to download that presentation. You have necessary data in the open source
посчитать
and do your math.
внедрение тех.
I invite you to calculate how certain factors and tools would cost you
Это очень сильно упростит.
and would make your life much more easy.
И немножко подводя итоги,
Summing up,
о которых мы говорили,
speaking about the factors that we were speaking about, I've collected
слайд,
on one slide
то те выводы, которые
all the
мы
takeaways
сегодня посмотрели.
that we have looked at today.
Обучение сотрудников ИБ.
So, information security personnel training, that's about phishing and about other nuances, messengers, personal security. Many of us, on our smartphones, we have access to corporate resources, such as mailbox, for instance. Next, we have to avoid weak passwords, two-factor identification, also register of user rights, backup copies, antiviral programs, and something I'd like to highlight specifically. You have to develop a plan just for the case of an incident. No one is doing that, but
it will help you in a stress situation when, for instance, you're seeing that something is going on, something wrong is going on, and you see that it's a DDoS attack, somebody is trying to interfere into your infrastructure, to invade there, and you don't know what's going on and how to respond to this. In this case, you need to be very calm. And you need to have a response plan ready-made to call the database, maybe to unplug you from the system. So you need to have a response plan and whom to contact, where to go, and where should it be reported. At similar conferences, you can find some people who have knowledge in this, in case if you got acquainted with a great man who can help you overcome the ransomware, then get in touch with him and exchange details. In case if you're a top manager, and in case if your security manager tells you whether you don't have this, then please introduce them. In case if you are information security specialist, then please do the math, calculate how much it will cost, the maturity level, at least on a high level. And I am most certain that founders and top managers will agree with you. It will be difficult to disagree with you when you're convincing them to introduce these processes of information security. Once upon a time, a friend of mine approached me with a request. He said that he had an incident, a ransomware attack. It's a small manufacturing site, so he gives me a phone call and says, please help, find some friends who can help us overcome. A ransom is requested by criminals, so they don't know what to do. So they would like to introduce some information security service for their cyber resilience. It took a few hours to reach out to different people. I get back to them, and they responded the words that I will never forget. You know, we decided to pay ransom. We will not introduce information security. We'd rather save money for the next ransom, in case if it happens. This is a very memorable dialogue. How many times they got attacked after that? Try to guess. Well, many times, I can say many times. And I'm sure that it cost them much more rather than a security system in place. Security system is not crazy cost. So what's the conclusion here? Today we discussed why small and medium enterprises should rather introduce information security system. First of all, because of potential losses, and in case if you do information security, and in case if you get attacked by ransomware, then it may happen, of course, but it's super unpleasant in case if it happens. When you put together maturity level model, you will see where we are right now. You will find the as-is situation, and you will develop the target situation given your budget, or maybe you can push your leadership to provide budget for this, and then you will track your progress. It's an important point. People tend to forget about this. Yesterday there was a session about CIS burnout, and everybody forgets that information security people are struggling a lot at their work, and it's very smooth when nothing happens. So the result of their successful work is when there are no incidents, no DDoS attacks or any other cyber attacks. Information security is a process. You cannot do it only once. It's not a one-off action. If you put together maturity level model only once, it will not help you forever. If you only introduce these things once, it will not help you forever. It's only a beginning of this journey. Please keep it in mind. These days, we use IT instruments more, and unfortunately or fortunately, this is the future. So, information security is a process, it's not a one-off thing. Up to 80% of attacks will be avoided with these basic measures that we have discussed today. And the weakest link is human factor. So train your people. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you very much for staying here till the end of my presentation. I'm happy to take your questions. Good afternoon. What's not clear is who should actually do this? Who should be responsible for this? I'm putting myself in the shoes of an SME's owner, and you're saying that your employees sometimes skip their work shift, and you have invoice, and you have some housekeeping points, and you have an IT admin, and regular employees ask him different, very stupid questions oftentimes. So when it happens, then what are you going to do? You cannot have an information security officer to be responsible for or information security. In case if you hire a poorly qualified information security manager, then he will not do a good job. So as a result, you will just waste your money and it will not be secure still. Well, it could maybe it remains the same way, or it gets a little bit better, but you spend your money for the security system which doesn't work well. Okay, thank you for the question. The most painful point is information security specialists, of course. Who should be responsible for this? Who should take ownership? I guess, first of all, the founder must arrange it. It's his responsibility. In my presentation, I mentioned a few roles. In case if you are information security specialist, then please approach the founder and say, "Dear founder, we need to take action. And currently we are not protected and we're hoping it's not going to happen to us, but it doesn't happen this way usually. We will get attacked at some point." So if you have an information security specialist, you should explain to him why it needs to be done, and the results must be measured from the standpoint of potential losses. I think one of the labs had statistics. It says that about 30% of SMEs do not survive these incidents. They go belly up after these incidents when they get faced with ransomware or any other attack. So I guess it should be joint action. But first of all, I guess the owner must be concerned about this. All right, another question. What criteria should be used to measure potential losses? Like you mentioned, the amount of potential losses, it's from public resources and it depends on the headcount in the company. These are average numbers, but there are some open source based products. They will help you for some time, but you can introduce them. They take a little bit more effort from employees, or licensed products. You can get in touch with any integrator, or you can get in touch with product owner and you will get clarity about the cost. Okay, thank you. Mikhail, thank you, Елизавета. It was a great presentation, very interesting. My question is as follows. What's the best value for money here, and what educational platform would you recommend to SMEs? It's an interesting question. Could you please approach me after my presentation? I will give you more details. Okay, thank you. Are there more questions? Good afternoon. Thank you for the presentation. My question is about employees' training. You see, among other things, I'm responsible for this as well in my employment company. And I noticed one fact. Ongoing training of employees bores people, makes people tired, to put it mildly. So they are not very enthusiastic to attend these trainings. In case if there are test phishing, for instance, or test exercises, then these employees fail these tests. Whenever we do these attack tests or test attacks ourselves, then these employees fail these tests, usually spectacularly. And there's a question. Do you have any prompts? How can we make employees more enthusiastic to train better? Because I attended the PhD last year, and among other things, I heard one thing there. Is there any point in training these employees in case if a good employee will get caught by a phishing email? How do we make sure that top management doesn't have this question? Very interesting. Great question. Recently, a friend of mine shared with me one thing. She is employed by a large business, and she shared that every quarter, in order to get a bonus, quarterly bonus, they need to take information security test. In case if you fail information security test, you will not get your quarterly bonus. So it's a stick versus carrot method. I can't say I support it very much, but maybe it could be relevant. What about possible carrot versus stick? As I said, my colleague gave a presentation about statistics, global statistics, not only Russian statistics. Out of 100 phishing emails, 30 will be opened, and the action that is necessary for criminals will be done. In case if you reduce this percentage down to 5% maybe, then it will already improve your efficiency. So it's something that needs to be tracked. What action gave you the result? Maybe you will never reach the 0%, and there will always be an employee who will click that link in the phishing email. In SME or large business, there will always be an employee who will click the link in the phishing email. And then information security is there to respond. And the question is how fast they will respond, how soon you will block the account and you will prevent data leakage. So you should compare the result, you compare the before the training and after the training. How many people clicked the link in a phishing email? I would focus on this, but please remember the stick method, not only carrot. So statistics, right? I would look at statistics, right? What else can we use? Unfortunately, I don't think there's anything else that we can use to measure. And we should demonstrate how much we would have lost or what would have been the risks if it were not 5%, but 30% or maybe 50%. Thank you very much for the answer. My question is like this. I'm very curious about that manufacturing site that chose to pay ransom. There are very conservative people out there, and at that manufacturing side, that tiny manufacturing side, I guess they just ignore information security. Information security tells them here are going to be the losses, and it will cost this and this, and it's going to be better. But they have a conservative approach, and they prefer to pay ransom, and even statistics doesn't help to convince these people. Is there any way to convince these conservative people who usually prefer to pay ransom?
Интересный вопрос.
A tricky question.
Но если бизнесу не
Well,
помогают
in
деньги,
case
от которых
if
он сталкивается,
the budget explanations don't help, or potential losses explanation doesn't help, then who makes this decision? The founder makes this decision, or who is the decision maker? Whom are you talking to? I guess this is what will give us a hint how to explain. I have such an idea that you should always get adapted to the picture of the world of the person you're talking to. Maybe the owner will say that, I don't want to have any downtime now, let's pay ransom now. And to be honest, I don't know what was the amount of ransom. They didn't share the amount of ransom. I asked them, but they refused to answer. So, in case if we are talking to top management, then top management always speaks the money of revenue. You should use revenue and potential losses language. Information security experts speak the language of technology. So I guess you should tell them about some detected vulnerabilities, such as you should do a free of charge penetration test and how long it will take criminals to hack you. On the 22nd, Dmitry Kokorin spoke here, and he told about, he said that there is a fund out there, it was established, and it extended to SMEs 100 million. So you can submit yourself for a mini bug bounty and to let a test hack attack happen. Average time to hack is 2 hours. They told me minimal numbers. Unfortunately, I cannot share all the numbers, but the average time is 2 hours. It took 2 hours to hack these small and medium companies. This is how long it takes to break your infrastructure. And if you talk to a businessman, to a business person, then use the language of money. And also, based on my expertise, in 2022, information security was important, but not that much important. We were not very much enthusiastic about it. Even business founders always thought that it's a myth, that you will never be hacked because you're a small business. But I guess that now, this year, any founder has 1 or 2 friends, business owners who have been hacked, and now they know it's important to have business security. I guess it's this way. Thank you. I guess there are no more questions. Thank you very much.